Yeah, this is gonna be interesting. So we're doing this on Zoom and also on Twitter Spaces. So what's up, bro?
Dude, it is Friday. I got this great new view. I just got off a little sales masterclass. Like, life is good, bro.
You love that. All right. Quick sound check.
Sounds good at my end.
All right, fuck it. Good enough, bro. So yeah, this is long overdue, man. I've seen your tweets for a while. I like some of your content, so I figured I'd reach out. Um, Particularly about the whole like your thoughts and stuff around the spiritual part of sales, which I think is interesting. And yeah, man, I don't really know anything about your story besides the fact that you were coaching Jeff and you live in New York and you also have a katana, which is pretty badass. Like
That's right.
yours is like pretty, it actually looks cooler than mine. So kind of jealous.
My katana is a little bit engraved and has it on the blade, but yours has your name in, bro. So I think yours
Yeah,
just
but
hits it
yours
even.
has a cool bend to it. Mine's kind of just like straight like that. I don't know which one would be like more like of an original style of katana.
You want to know a funny story before we dive into things?
Yeah, yeah, please.
So, my roommate sleepwalks, right? Like he's a notorious sleepwalker. And so my roommate and I were like we were showing him the katana. And the thing was like, after he left the room, I went up to my roommate, Alex, was like, dude, I don't think I should have done that. And he goes, you were thinking he was gonna stab you in your sleep, wasn't he? It's like, that was exactly what I was thinking. So my roommate Jake is an awesome guy. He's the nicest dude, but he's sleepwalk. So my biggest fear is he's gonna come in my room, take my katana. So I gotta lock my room now.
Dude, that's crazy. Did you hear him like stumbling around at night? Does he like make weird noises and stuff? Like,
No, so he's better now, but there'd be times where I'd wake up and he's like sitting on this chair
in your
and
room?
I'm like sleep. Yeah, and he's like sleep talking. So I was like, dog, I literally like can't have this anymore. So it's funny because he has sleep problems, so he has to deal with that. But that's like one of the things that I have to make sure is I'm like, all right, dude, if I'm gonna have a katana in this room, I gotta actually lock my room now.
Bro, that's crazy. You should just get him to handcuff himself to his bed so he can't get up at night.
That's what we were saying, right? Make it easy for us.
Yeah, that's not creepy at all. That's not creepy at all. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really know anything about your story, bro. I was just looking at my Snapchat memories and I realized it's been like 8 years, basically this month, at least 8 years since I've been in sales. I've kind of been in like started door to door and then started selling freelancing and then recruiting for a
Nice.
while and an agency and then coaching and you name it. It's like SaaS, like courses, like everything really. What about
Right.
you? Like how did you end up in New
Dude,
York? How'd you get in sales?
yeah, great question, man. So that's
How did
actually
you come up
super
with the
in
toilet clothes? What everyone wants to know.
oh, the toilet clothes. We'll leave that for a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
later.
Cliffhanger.
But dude, that's funny you said that because I actually share a very similar story to you, funny enough. So I got started with sales like in tech sales, right? So I was actually like an SDR working for a company called MindBody. This was my second year of college, heading into my third year. And I was always into entrepreneurship. Like I was always doing like the ecom thing already in college. I found out about affiliate marketing when I was like 17 years old. I think like I
Oh,
was the
nice.
first year of ClickFunnels. I actually signed up for a ClickFunnels account. And I was like, dude,
How old
this
are
would
you
be,
now?
I'm 27,
Oh, okay.
just
So
turned
a while ago.
27.
Wow.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I realistically started in sales until about like 19, like an actual first cold calling like sales role. But I've always been into like the internet marketing space since before I even graduated high school. In fact, like one of the things that was like really important for me was like I kind of knew heading into college that I didn't want to go the corporate route, but I was battling between, hey, I have to be the good first generation immigrant kid that my parents want me to have the nice job, and what I truly wanted, which is to become a business owner, an entrepreneur. So I kind of straddled both sides for a little bit, right? Like I was working tech sales at a company called MindBody as an SDR. For anyone who doesn't know tech sales, it's just an appointment setter, right?
Yeah.
And then I got to a point where I was like, all right, well, I also need to start pursuing this online, world. And guess who showed up on my feed was Mr. Ty Lopez.
Hi, bro. Yeah, same. Fucking Ty
All right.
Lopez, man. Here, I,
So
I was
go
a
ahead.
of a late bloomer. I didn't know about any of this internet marketing stuff when I was like 27. That's basically when I was first getting into sales. When I was first getting into business, I went back to college to do mechanical engineering at like 25,
Mm,
and I realized because I wanted to go the opposite route. My dad was an entrepreneur. My mom very entrepreneurial. She has like a government job, but she's always like sold stuff on the side. And I was like, no, that's not me. So I went to school for engineering, and I was like, I'm going to go like the safe route because I was really introverted. And
mm.
I started getting into like pickup through in college because like my girlfriend
Yeah, like
broke
the
up with
like
me.
the mystery method type stuff, like
Yeah,
PDA,
like
like
follow like
Owen
Owen
and
and
all those
guys
guys,
like that.
RSD.
Yeah. And because my girlfriend broke up in my first like month of being in school. And I was like, oh, I need to find a new girl. Anyway, I went down that rabbit hole and I was going out like 5 days a week meeting chicks. And I was like, you know what? Halfway through it, I started seeing Ty Lopez's videos and I was like, I hate engineering. I think I'm too dumb for this. I graduated, but I was like, there's no way I'm going to do this after. And maybe I'll go into, engineering sales or something like that. And because I built up the confidence by just going out and meeting chicks.
Right.
Like, well, if I can do this, I could probably sell something. And that was my whole mindset. So I got really into personal development and all that shit. And yeah, like I graduated and moved across the country, and I was like I was cold calling engineering companies. I was, hey, do you guys need an engineer? They're like, no, like this is
Damn,
weird.
bro.
Why aren't you sending like knocking on the door and shit? They're like, why don't you send us like a resume? I'm like, oh, like I figured I'd just drop by. They're like, no one does this. They were kind of impressed, but also like, no, like go away,
Whoa.
go away. So
Dude,
I
you
got
had
into
balls for
solar.
doing that though. That's crazy. Like a lot of people who start in sales, like there's a lot of people in the space who like want to start off in like in high ticket, right? And there
Totally.
are challenges with a high ticket, but it is a little bit more of a, beginner friendly sales model compared to like you said, your door to door or solar, right?
Dude, like I kind of made up my mind because I was reading all these stupid business books like throughout school. I started reading fucking Ty Lopez. I was like, oh, I gotta read books now. Like, God damn it. I was like, all right. Every
Knowledge.
business book. Yeah, after reading like 10 business books, they're like, learn sales, learn sales, learn sales. It's like, no, tell me something else where I don't have to learn the fucking like book. I guess I had to learn it. But yeah, goddamn Ty. I'm so jealous of people that learned about like internet marketing and sales and copywriting, all this shit in their like teens now. Like, I'm like, man, you guys have such a head start. But but yeah, dude, like when I graduated, I didn't know there was like communities. I was just thinking today, I was like, because I've been on Twitter since like 2019. I've been making
Yeah.
content. I know like a lot of people now. My network is crazy, but when I started, I didn't know anything. And when my first sales gig, they didn't do sales training. They're like, okay, here's the script. They taught us about like solar panels for 2 days, and they're like, okay, good luck. Go make some
Right.
sales. I was like, oh fuck, I'll go figure it out, right? And yeah, I remember getting a sale on my third day. I was like, oh, this is so
Let's
shit. I'm
go.
so bad at this. Yeah, but if you think about it, it's so crazy. You're just knocking on someone's door and then like, hey, do you want solar panels on your roof? And they're like, yeah, okay. Like now,
Well, that's why sales is like king, right? Because like if you could do that, man, like anything else you do afterwards just stacks on top of that.
yeah, and I wouldn't say that I learned sales very well doing door to door, especially with that first company. And funny enough, like I worked for 2 months for them. I made 14 sales. And if you know anything about solar, it's like once you make the sale, it's not like you instantly get paid. They have to come and like the engineers come and look at the roof, and a lot of times the deals just fall through because the angle of the sun's not perfect. In Canada, there's like it's sunny for like 2 days a year, so I ended up for the two like I worked 5 days, at least 5 days a week for 12 hours a day, just knocking doors. I made $250. I was supposed to get paid $500 per sale. So I was like, damn, like when you calculate my hourly rate, that's like like 12 cents an hour. I was like, fuck, dude.
Can we talk about that real quick? Because I think that's a
Yeah.
piece that a lot of like the gurus don't talk about, which is like you gotta eat shit in sales for a minute.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
the 10 to 15, 20K per month is
Yeah.
doesn't come until you really have the skill set to tap into that. Right? Because I think
Completely.
one of the biggest illusions, and it's the same thing with
Oh,
any
it's
kind of
just the
marketing model.
offer, bro. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's just the offer. Make 10K per month in social media marketing. You need to close 10 clients at $1,000 per
yeah.
month.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Ty
Like,
got me with that.
it,
That's one of the, I was one of the
yeah,
first
Ty
people to
got me
buy
with that too.
his SMMA program, actually.
Me
And I
too.
did it for a
Yeah.
while too. I was freelance copywriting at the time, but I was like, I'm going to switch to this. And then I was knocking doors here in Halifax. And the third door I knocked on, they're like, okay. I was like, oh, you do want to do it? Awesome. That's like another story. But yeah, you definitely have to eat shit, bro. Obviously, you
Yeah,
hire
and I think the
people like
biggest thing
yourself.
that I
That's shortcut that process.
right,
Still,
and I think it's important, right? Because it's like expectations are the key to staying in this game. Like
yeah.
I try to tell my guys, it's like, hey guys, like you can make 10K per month and you're like some people are transitioning kind of like, you know, going from let's say tech sales to high ticket sales already. So they might already be primed to make that 10K in the first 30, 90 days. If you're starting from scratch, you have no sales skills, you're someone who's going from, let's say, e-com to high ticket sales, you have to have the expectation that it's going to take a couple, several months, if not a year or two, to really start making some money.
Yeah.
And without that expectation, you get discouraged after like 30 days and you quit. I see too many people do it. So I think that's one of the biggest things that people who enter into the space or transition, they gotta have the right expectations before they like commit to this thing.
So true,
You know what
man.
I mean?
You know, it's interesting. There's like a lag now between Zoom and Twitter Spaces, but anyway, my expectation was interesting, and because I literally like the reason why I persisted through doing door to door, I actually chose door to door first because I took the same mentality I took into like I was already into like fitness and stuff, and going out and meeting chicks, and I used to play guitar a lot, so I kind of like I understood what it took to learn. And I was like, well, my goal isn't to make 10K per
Hmm.
month in sales my first month. I didn't even think that was possible. I mean, I guess I did because there was like the Wolf of Wall Street and stuff back then. And anyway, my goal
Right.
was to just get the reps in. I was like, well, because at the time when I was in college, I started thinking about getting into sales like a year into it. And then I didn't do sales until a full year after, but I was going out and meeting chicks and stuff. So I almost count that as a sales experience. But my roommate was a
Yeah, I
car
would too.
salesman. Yeah, totally. My roommate was a car salesman, and I was thinking about it logically. I was like, well, if I was like, how many people do you talk to a day? And he was like, I don't know, 10, 15, 20. I was like, okay, well, if it's about getting in the reps as fast as possible, I should do something where I talk to more people. So I was like, it's either going to be cold calling or knocking on doors. And I just decided, like, well, I want to get good as fast as I can. So I need more reps. And the first thing that came up was a door knocking job with solar. And I was kind of like, I like the idea of solar. And I was like, I guess it's related to engineering. So like I sold my parents on like it being a good idea. They're like, you're doing what? You're just selling? Like you just graduated. That was a completely different story. But yeah, I mean, I had low
How many
expectations.
reps were you putting in? Like, just out of curiosity, there, Ben. Like, because what you said was so important, right? It's like the degree that we hit our goals in sales really comes down to how quickly we're getting our reps and getting that positive feedback loop. So when you were in your first like sales role, like what was the volume of reps that you were kind of like looking at?
I was like knocking on like 200 doors a day.
Sheesh.
Yeah. Um, and I mean, fast forward, like I had a whole bunch of sales jobs between that and like when I worked for Cole Gordon, for example, I worked on his team for like a year, um, appointment setting, and I would do like minimum would be like $100 a day, maybe 200 if I'm like hustling, even though they have marketing and like it's supposed to be so easy when they have marketing, but compared to cold calling, but it's not. I think I did like I can't even remember, like thousands and thousands and thousands of dials, and you know,
Dang.
thousands of conversations and stuff. But that was crazy experience. It was really good. It was a really big hit to my ego because before I worked with him, because a lot of people would be like, oh, Cole Gordon's such a big company. They'd be like, oh, I'm the best. But for me, I was like, I didn't want to tell anybody I worked for Cole for like 4 months because I had a business before that. I was like entrepreneur guy. We're making like 50K per month. And then we split that up and I was like, well, what do I do now? I didn't want to do it myself. And anyway, I was like, oh, I'm going to be an appointment center.
Right. And
This
I
is
think
gay. Yeah.
that's a thing that I think with a lot of I've seen this with a lot of entrepreneurs because I started off as an agency owner, right? Like back in 2019, that's actually how I made the leap. I left the corporate tech sales world, decided not to like continue with the offer at Salesforce, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna start an agency, right? And it was doing well till me and my business partner actually parted ways. COVID hit. We were running Facebook ads to gyms, so we didn't have a market anymore
Fuck it.
during COVID. So that's when I actually took the leap to high ticket sales. I say this because I'm curious, how was that experience like transitioning to high ticket sales from being a business owner? Like, what was the good? What was maybe kind of the challenging? What was kind of the biggest learning lessons from that for you?
Mm. Well, I knew how hard it was to like generate leads and stuff. So on one hand, I was like, oh, this is great. Like I don't have to do any of the lead gen, and really I don't have to do anything except for doing sales, which I already liked. So on that end, it was nice. And when I started on Polstein, like the appointment setters were, I think the worst paid one was making 10K per month. So I was making really good money until they changed the commission structure like 4 months into it. But yeah, I kind of liked it. And at the same time, eventually the reason why I left um, was because I started dating a girl that lived like 4 hours away. And I was like, I had to work like
Oh,
every, yeah, yeah.
dang.
And I was like, I started like missing my freedom. I was just being
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm not going to work today. I'm going to go, go see her. Like, fuck this. Um, so yeah, it was good, man. Like, it's funny because, um, like Cole's team is one of the biggest in the industry now. And it was like
Yeah.
really like the first like sales, high ticket sales team I ever worked on. So it was from that perspective, it's like, it's pretty high standards. Like I kind of like judge every other company. Like I worked for a bunch since then. I worked for like Alex Becker. I worked for a guy named Eli Wild, Rudy Mauer. I was closing for JK Molina, fucking Wiz of Ecom and Aaron, selling for a guy in the UK now who hit me up through Instagram, and we became buddies. He does like sales. He's like a sales agency. So I'm going to be like closing and then also like a sales manager for his clients. So that's kind of cool because there's like,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's sick. But yeah,
I don't know if you
I
know
do
this,
judge
man, but
everybody off of Cole. Yeah.
I was gonna say, one, you're one of the few people I know in this game that have worked with a lot of the bigger names. Like, I think you might have heard this, but I got personal coaching from Eli Wild, and that's what changed the game for
Okay.
me back in 2020. Was I was stepping into high ticket sales, learned about Eli Wild, saw this whole world that he has with his mythology, and got obsessed, dude. And then
Mm,
that's when I went from like closing at 20, 25% to like 40, 45, 50, 60% was like just that one coaching program he took me through. So I wanted
yeah.
to say that because I was like, dude, that's funny. You might have hopped on a call with me maybe, or I could have probably seen you inside the
No,
community
I
back
think
then
I
without
remember
even
because
knowing
I
each
seen
other.
you in some of his old videos. Because when I started working for him, I was going through his old trainings, and I'm like, I know that guy. Like when from Twitter, I started seeing you pop up on Twitter. I was like, that guy looks so familiar. And then I was like, that's it. Yeah. It's funny,
Yeah,
man.
that was
Like
my start,
Eli's
man.
a beast. Like Eli trained Cole. I would say Eli trained Cole and his like seven
I would
wounds.
I would agree too.
Those came from Eli's like 10 clarities. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember the first time I heard Eli, I joined the mastermind Taylor Welch, their elite program back when traffic and funnels was a thing. And
Oh
that's
yeah,
how
Team F.
I started, yeah, I started working with Cole eventually because I met his business partner there. He already left, but I remember Eli did a speech and he's like, there's like 100 people in the room all doing, 6, 7, 8 figures. And he's like, all of you combined, I've done more sales than all of you. put together. I was like, who the fuck is this? Um, and then I remember I took his sales coaching, and that month our revenue went from like 30K to like 50K, like uh just from a bit of sales coaching, so like switching up
Dude,
things.
it's crazy you said that. So there was a guy, he's actually my business coach now. He's a good friend and he's very much a mentor. I used to sell for him, this guy named Greg Hickman. And
Oh, dude, I
I
know
was
Greg. I hung out with Greg in person.
Greg's my guy. So I was his first like sales hire. I was, I think, employee number 4. And I think at the time he was making about like 40K per month, 40, 50K per month. I started applying Eli stuff, and we being like it was me and one another closer. But personally, we were going from like 40 to 50K months to like 150, 180K months in a span of a couple months. And I can credit that all pretty much to like Eli's coaching that I learned.
Yeah, dude, Eli's a beast. Like Brian, who's the guy that I knew who was Cole's partner. I mean, he still is, I guess. He's running RCA.
I say,
Brian
yeah.
is like one of the best closers I've ever met. And I know that Eli trained him one on one too. And he's like the type of guy that you're like, oh, like when you listen to his calls, it seems like he's just shooting the shit with people. He's like, he just matches the energy of anyone he speaks to. He's just like shooting the shit. Next thing you know, they're buying, they're paying in full. You're like, what the fuck did I just see? And on our sales meetings, sometimes he would do the reviews. And like 2 minutes into the call, he's like, oh, this is this type of person. He's going to give this objection. He's going to give this. And like it would always play out exactly like you said.
Exactly.
I'm like, it's fucking nuts. Because a lot of people, like one thing that Eli teaches is the postures, like superior,
Yes.
equal, and
Inferior,
inferior.
neutral. Yeah.
Yeah. And like a lot of people are like, I have to be the alpha of the call. Like they
Yes.
took a Sam Ovens say like consulting accelerator, like you must be the alpha, you know? So like, oh, this is the way the call will go. But inferior is like the way that I think Eli described it is like if you're in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you're on your back, you can still kill somebody on your back.
Yeah. Exactly. Dude, that was a key concept that I didn't really hear from anyone else prior. And Eli is such like he's like the Gandalf of the sales space in my opinion, because he's like the guy that's kind of like some people know, but like but a lot of people don't. And he's kind of like the mentor of all the different sales mentors. Like when you kind of like
Yeah.
think back to where all people cross paths, Eli's kind of like at the root of that. I actually got a funny Eli story because I don't know if you've ever met him in person, but I was at an Airbnb with him for Funnel Hacking Live. I think it
Oh,
was 2 years
sick.
ago. It was 2022.
Eli's a
And
party. I feel like.
yeah, he's a savage, dude. And he's also a really big guy. Like he's a tall dude. He's like ripped, tall, good looking.
So
So
this is the thing. No, nobody talks about the real sales trick is to be handsome and tall and ripped. But anyway, go on.
exactly. That's the actual meta. But anyway, we're all like having fun. We're getting some drinks, and we're all coming back to the Airbnb. And it's probably like 1:30 at this time, right? And Eli is literally putting on an impromptu like sales masterclass drunk with all the other guys in our Airbnb. And we're all like just captivated. We're like, what the fuck is he doing? What NLP magic is this? And I'm just like, dog, we're all drunk. It's 1:30 and we're still being like NLP'd at this Airbnb after a party. Like it was
Bro,
hilarious.
like when I sold for him, I wish he would record the call because we were just like talking one on one, and he was telling me all this stuff that you can do with hypnosis. He's like,
Yeah.
first you make them think of something interior, then exterior, interior, and exterior, and then they're like their guard drops, and then you can get them to do like whatever you want. I was like, wait, what? He's like telling me all this shit. I was like, damn, there really is levels to this shit. Like
So
yeah,
many
I bought a
levels.
sales script. Like I'm good. It's crazy. Sales, like you can go so deep in it. It's fucking nuts.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important to learn from different people, but
Yeah.
also have a focused learning. So here's what I mean by this, Ben, is there's often times people just like get a Sam Ovens course or a Grant Cardone or, even like a Cole Gordon. And what they do is they take the script as like gospel, like, oh, this is the best script ever.
Yeah.
And then they get really stuck in that. And it can actually help. It can actually help them like get to like maybe 25, 30%. But then they don't actually expand upon that world and start developing their own style. The way that I think about it is kind of like mixed martial arts, right? Like you didn't make up Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but if you're trying to be a top fighter, you learn, from a master, you master maybe just BJJ at first, and then you start learning Muay Thai. Then you might start up leveling your grappling and your wrestling game. And when you
Yeah.
start to combine all these different like philosophies and roles and different styles, you actually create your own sales mixed martial style. And I think that's one of the best ways to do it is like you don't just copy Grant Cardone, you don't try to carbon copy him or Sam Evans, is you take
Right.
every bit from the different teachers and then you craft your own. That's what at least I found has personally worked for me.
Yeah, for sure. I'm the same way because I've been through like everyone's sales training almost. And the one thing
Wow.
when I worked for Eli, it's funny because you said that he's kind of like the guy that, a lot of these top people know. Everyone sends him his courses. So he just sends them to me, be like, hey, go through this guy's program and this guy's and this guy's and this guy's. I'm like, okay, cool. Because it's like, there's like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of programs and trainings and shit. I'm like, this is sick.
Yeah,
But
man.
yeah, it's just like kind of combining things until you kind of get your own style.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
So, oh yeah, let's talk about agency. Like my brief stint as a social media marketer.
Oh yeah, let's talk. Just chill on that.
I was like, how should I get social media marketing clients? I had the great idea. I actually asked my dad at the time, and he's like, "Why don't you hand out flyers?" Like flyers. I'm like, all right.
Flyers, bro.
I went and printed out these like flyers. It was like, hey, do you want clients from social media? Like, text me or something like that. And I just started knocking on doors. And yeah, it's funny. Because at the time I think I bought Kai Lopez's program, and I also bought Consulting Accelerator, and I had
Ooh.
memorized Sam's flow, like basically word for question for question. And these people, they called me. They're like, "Hey, we got your thing. Can you come talk to us?" I was like, "Okay." And it's funny because here I am, like telling them they can get social media marketing clients, but I'm like, I'm. You would think that I'd be selling it to them through social media, but
Social
just
media.
knocking on
Just through
doors.
flyers.
Yeah. Anyway, I remember this was like the first high ticket script I really had, and the guy literally broke down and started crying in front of me, like when I was saying it. Because
Wow.
seems like you must make them like sit in their pain and all this shit. I was just like, oh, I was like sweating, but I was like, holy shit. Like after I left, I was like, holy shit, like this stuff is powerful.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Dude, that moment, it's funny because I had a similar experience. And it was funny enough, also Sam Hubbins script. So shout out to Sam, man.
Yeah,
Like,
shout out to Sam.
obviously, he's no longer focused on that stuff, but he really birthed like so many entrepreneurs in this space. Like he's a godfather in that sense. But I had a similar experience. It was like I was using an old Grant Cardone script prior, and I just hated it. Like I hated saying the things that I was saying. It's like, dude, I do not feel ethical or aligned with this stuff. Like, I need to find something different.
Do it anyway.
Yeah. So I found Sam's script and I was like, okay, I could get with this. I don't know about the Sam silence stuff because I'm a talker, but everything else in terms of like the
Yeah.
structure with what he was doing, like I was like, all right, this is gold. Tried on my first call and they didn't
Yeah.
cry, but I could tell for the first time they were opening up. And I started to really feel that connection that I wasn't feeling in other conversations. And they enrolled. They enrolled. It was my first like true four-figure, like it was only 1,000 at the time, which was like kind of funny, but like, you
Yeah.
know, I'll sell like 20 or 30K programs now. And this and me getting my first $1,000
For
deal
your
is
first
still
thousand, you're
better.
like,
Dude,
this
you
is
you lose your
real.
shit. It's
This
like
is
it was better
real.
than losing my like this. Don't mean to be funny, but like it was. I'm being real when I say this. It was better than losing my virginity. Like truly, when I got that first sale, it was like
Yeah,
I'm
well,
on top of the fucking world. I feel like I've unlocked a skill set that I can use, not just like ethically, but like can actually like finally make me some money online. And from
yeah.
there, man, it was game over. It was game over.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. You're like, holy shit, like the internet is your friend. Like this stuff is real. It's like mind blowing. It's funny because one of my buddies, he's not on Twitter. But we met in um Traffic to Funnels Mastermind. His name's David. He's a German guy, and he is a really good closer too. But he sells like $100,000 deals, like two hundred fifty
Mm.
thousand dollar deals, like all the time. And we were just talking about how there's kind of like levels. If he's at like level 5, like somebody who's at level one, like back, if I put myself back in my shoes of just getting started, if someone was like, yeah, you can just sell like a $250,000 deal, I'd be like, what? Like,
What?
who has that much money? Like, is that even a thing? Like, I don't believe you. There's no way. Even 10K. I remember at the time, there was a time where I was like so broke, like so broke as a copywriter. My first high ticket client paid me like 4K, and it was like life changing money. I was like, not my sorry,
Yeah.
not my first
Your
client,
first
but like
investment?
my first big client paid me 4K, and it was like,
Oh wow. Yeah,
holy
yeah.
shit, like I'm rich now. It was
Yeah,
nuts.
dude. And it unlocks a different world, right? Because I totally get what you mean. Like one of the biggest things that I mean, there's some people who can like delude themselves to do this, but like I couldn't sell a 10K program in the beginning because I never invested more than like 3K in myself.
Yeah,
So once I started actually investing like 5K, 8K, 10K, like an 18K plus like mastermind, that's when I was like, all right, if I can do this, I can start selling this shit. So like you said, there's levels to it because it's not as easy as like, Iman Gadzhi being like, hey, you can sell a 10K program even though you don't have
right.
any sales skill. Like that's not gonna happen. Your belief is not gonna match the reality of what's going on. And so I think that's what's super important is like we got to not just, you know, understand the model, but we got to understand our own beliefs in programming as we step into this the
100%.
high ticket sales arena so that we can be in alignment and we can actually help people overcome the same beliefs that we've been able to do ourselves. Right?
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, that's most of sales, right? Um, yeah, dude. Made me think of something, but it slipped in my mind now. But uh, fuck, dude, having a brain fart now.
No worries. I actually got a question for you, bro.
Yeah.
So what are you most excited about in 2024? Like what's something that you're excited about building or growing or anything along those lines right now?
Most excited about building. I don't know, man. Last year was a big year for me. I traveled a lot, and you know, I've been pretty consistent on Instagram, not so much on Twitter anymore. But yeah, I honestly, that's a good question. I don't really, I don't really have anything huge. I think I got to move out of Canada. That's probably like my next big move.
That's
Just
dope. Yeah.
because I'm in like a small town here on the East Coast. There's like nobody here that I can really like that's in the marketing game at all. Like someone I can relate with and
Right.
like hang out with. So it would be cool to be in a place, one that's warmer, two where there's like a better like social circle. But business wise, I mean, I'm just kind of doing like I don't know, more of the same. I saw that you have like a school group or something like that, a community or something like
Yeah. Yeah, just
that.
launched a free school group last Friday, funny enough. So a week. Where I think we're like 5 members away from like 200 members. So super
Nice.
excited about that. And then I just came out with something new today. So I'll keep people in an open loop, but something exciting also just released today with a paid group coaching opportunity for some guys. So super excited about those two things, man. But similar to you, right? Like I think 2023 was a big year for me as well. Not just in the sense of like business and sales, but also big life stuff, like fully integrated with like my move here in New York City.
Yeah.
Um,
What
joined
do
a
you think
couple
of New York?
masterminds. Dude, I love it. Energy here is unreal. So it's a love or hate relationship for most people. Like here's the thing, like I'm overlooking like Manhattan right now, which is fucking awesome. But like the thing with New York is if you're not wired a certain way, like you'll burn out, like you'll get tired of it, right?
Yeah.
I grew up around San Francisco, the Bay Area, and in the suburbs. So I was kind of always that kid that was always type A, like let's get it in a very like chill
Right.
suburbia town. So in reality, I didn't really fit that well in my hometown. So I was like, all right, let me move to like San Diego and see how that is. Now, San Diego is beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but it's still very much that like surfer, chill back, grounded. And it gave me
Yeah.
the beautiful opportunity to like understand that side of myself, like spirituality, like meditation, breath work, like grounding myself.
Mm.
But with New York, it's like feels so naturally how I'm wired that every time I'm here, I'm always finding like an up leveling in my business or social life. Like I was in Hawaii for a month to just like chill out, right, in January. And I was like, damn,
Oh, nice.
this is this is fucking awesome, but it's slow as shit, right?
Mm,
And then as soon a week into coming back to New York, like things are firing off again with business, social life, getting back in that energy. So I think it's really just about finding alignment in your environment, how you're wired, understanding
yeah.
that, and then aligning your environment accordingly so that you can get in a position where like everything is just firing off all cylinders, right?
Yeah, man. I feel like that's what I did last year. I was in Poland, I was in Colombia,
Wow.
Dubai, Austin for like a day to go meet Dylan and those guys. Um, but I was kind of thinking also Costa Rica. I was kind of thinking because I would spend typically like 2 weeks there. Like I was in Dubai for 2 weeks, Colombia for 2 weeks, Poland for 2 weeks. Um, so about as different of a place as you can get, especially from where I live. Because I
Right.
was kind of like, well, could I live here and just kind of like trying to soak it up like a local? And I mean, you want to talk about like energy or something like, man, like Dubai was crazy. Yeah, like, have you been there?
Dude, no, it's on the list. How was it? How was the energy and environment there?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I think people have like a love hate relationship with Dubai too. It's like, oh, they're either like, oh, it's so fake and full of prostitutes or whatever. But no, I loved it. You're just surrounded by it's like luxury, opulence.
Yeah.
I guess like similar to New York. I have actually never even been to New York City. Embarrassing enough. Um, but yeah, dude, it was crazy. I'm like, next time I come here, I'm just not leaving. They're gonna have to like force me out.
There you go, man. And while we're on that topic, is it cool if we dive a little bit into like energy and like spiritual
Yeah,
sales?
yeah, yeah.
Because I know this is something you're talking about on Twitter too, and you're kind of thinking about this. And I think this is a realm that not a lot of people really tap into, right? Like
Mm,
I'm really much on a mission to combine the Western sales world and like the Eastern philosophy into like
yeah.
that finding that harmony, man. Because at least I personally found, and a lot of this was attested to Eli, but so much of my style of selling is very much energy based selling,
Hmm.
right? So that's why it's been kind of challenging, at least in the beginning, to create the frameworks that I teach my clients because a lot of it is so energy based that I had to figure out how to quantify it into a tangible thing that people could actually pick up on. And
Yeah,
what I found is when you really tap into it, it's like not only to become that sales dog that like knows exactly what to say, but there's an actual real connection and transformation that you get to make for not just your prospects, but yourself through your own journey.
yeah. It's huge. Yeah. I mean, I first started thinking about this like way back when I was still going out to just pick up chicks. Because at a certain
Yeah.
level, I think people are like, well, like, what's the pickup line? So it's like you're very much
Right.
like you have a script or you have a technique that you try to work on. And then eventually it's like you go from like something you're doing to like who you are. Right. And then maybe you have like certain frames that you're coming from. It's like as long as I had like this frame, I'm uh, like your vibe for that. Like I'm just going to bring good energy to this person, and
Right.
you still have to know the moves, and like you still have to know how to like close a deal per se. But um, yeah, dude, I think I mean, when I think of energy, there's so many facets to it. Like one being present on a call, and
Yeah.
because like when I listen back to some of my old calls, I'm like, oh, I could have closed this guy in like 10 minutes. And then sometimes I'm really like my energy's on point. I'm really like present on the call, and I do close them in 10 minutes. And like if you're always thinking of like the next thing to say, or like, oh, did that sound right? If you're constantly judging yourself, or like, like, oh fuck, I forgot to ask this question, or you're like you start thinking about like all these objections that could come up at the end of the call. It's weird. Like I know that I'm in like a good state of mind when it's like we're talking, but if we're on a sales call, it's almost like I'll have like an out of body experience where I'm like looking, like you can kind of see
Looking down on
exactly,
yourself in a
yeah,
way
it's like a
because
bird's
I know
eye view.
exactly what you're talking about.
So you're talking and you're vibing this up. I'm like, okay, he's gonna say this, and then this is gonna happen, and he's gonna give me this objection, so I'm gonna like handle that here, and this is exactly how I'm gonna pitch the offer. and he's going to close. And it's like, it just like works out like that. It's cool. It's like a cool
Dude,
state of
I,
mind that you
I
can get
call that
into.
like entering the matrix on sales calls. And it doesn't happen every time, but
No,
exactly what you said is like you're such in flow. You're like asking the right questions at the right time. You're pitching like perfectly. You're going for the close, and like time slows down and you literally get a little bit of an out of body experience. And here's the
yeah,
best part is you're so present with that person, like
it
nothing
doesn't feel
else
like a
exists
sales
in the real
call
world.
either. Yeah, that
Yeah,
too.
nothing else exists, man. It's crazy. I love that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, sales is like it's like a form of meditation if you're doing it right.
Yeah, man.
But it's
I always
also
say
easy to just get
sales is a
like way in
sacred
your head.
space.
Yeah. I think it's easy to get like in your head too, and that can like really fuck you up. Like, for example, if you're on a team with really high standards, like on Cole's team,
Yeah.
it's like I remember I had my best month, and then the month right after that was my worst month. I was like, oh no. And you start like
Yeah.
overcompensating. You're like, oh, like I need to like catch up to my projections. And now you're just being pushy and weird on the calls. But I found um on my best month, I was super committed. I was like so committed to hitting a certain amount of like sales, like 30 sales, which is like my record. I'm like, I'm going to do it. And
Right.
I realized that when I listened back to my calls, it wasn't that I was saying anything really that different because I listened to my calls every day. So I listened to the calls from that month, and everyone was buying. Like everyone I spoke, it was crazy.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, why is that? But I was like, that energy of me just being committed to hitting my goal. I feel like when you're talking to someone and like that shines through as like your certainty. You know, there's a big difference in your energy if you're like coming from like a scarcity place where like you should do this versus like you're committed and you have resolve, which Eli often talks about, or just
Right.
certainty. You're like, you need to do this. Like, oh, okay. It's like it's maybe it's a tonality thing, but it really is an energy thing. Like,
Yeah. It's the there's a couple levels, at least is what I've kind of observed and learned from Eli as well. It's just like at the end of the day, it's congruence, right?
yeah,
It's being congruent with your goals and your best version of yourself, as well as helping people get in congruence with their goals and their best version of yourself, right? I've
yeah,
faced very similar situations that like you were talking about, where it's like, dude, I'm gonna have a record breaking month. And like you just say that and you speak it into existence and it just happens, right? And there's nothing that
yeah,
stops you. Now, that being said, that takes a lot of energy, right? It takes
yeah.
sacrifice, trade-offs. There's been times where I burn out in the process of trying to do that too much,
Mhm.
where like relationships kind of get a little bit like, you know, less focused because I'm so work focused. So you gotta know the balance between it. But when you can turn that on and off intentionally is really where the magic starts to happen.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's like it's a special feeling where you're just like so locked in. You're like, I'm going to just make it happen, and then it just does. It's like the universe is like fucking starts. It's like Doctor Strange, and everything starts spinning. You're like, you just
Yeah.
like make the universe like you just bend it to your will, and yeah, you can definitely burn out. Burnt out plenty of times, but yeah, that's why I'm so big on like habits and stuff now, and just
Mhm.
personal development. And I have like a
What are some
crazy
like
long
habits
routine.
and like energy rituals that you take to make sure that you're like de-stressing and keeping health consistent?
De-stressing. I do the sauna every day after the gym. I
Oh
work
yeah.
out every day, like probably twice a day at least.
Damn.
So yeah, I'm up early. I'm not drinking. I'm not like I have a pretty like consistent diet. Like I track my macros and all that shit. So if anything, I just removed a lot of the stuff that took away my energy. So like I'm
Like
not like
alcoholic you're
watching
talking
porn
about.
and stuff. I'm not like yeah, I'm not
Mhm.
like drinking. I'm not doing drugs. Um, I think that's the biggest thing. It's like you have energy leaks. It's not like
Yeah.
everyone has enough energy, but it's like your energy is being siphoned away from bad habits or by
A-
bad patterns.
Yeah, Alex Becker talks about that a lot, right? It's like
Well, he would know
The
too, because
biggest
his routine's retarded. Yeah, like he's a good
dude, his
routine.
routine is crazy. But I remember like before Alex made this transition to be like a crypto influencer,
Yeah,
he had some of the best YouTube videos when it came to like I don't even know if you remember this, but like nightmare mode and like his like
yeah.
dopamine detox protocols.
His
Like that stuff is
program,
crazy, man.
Iron, I think it was called. It was apparently really good. I never went through it. Eli told me about it. He's like, "Oh, Alex Becker sent
Yeah, they
us."
were really good because it was like it's the same thing that Sam was doing too, which is like it wasn't just tactics and strategies, it was getting people to
Yeah,
actually change their habits, their energy, and their mindset,
yeah.
right? And that's
If you
that's
don't
where
have
the
a
real
business
interchange
problem, you
happens.
have personal problems that show up in your business. Like another
Exactly,
Sam.
man.
Yeah, it's funny because Becker was in Sam's mastermind. All these top guys, Iman
Yeah.
Gadzhi was in his
Iman
mastermind.
Gadzhi was there. If you look at old videos, you actually see
Yeah, you
Iman when
see,
he's like
yeah,
16 or 17 in those.
yeah, like all roads lead to Sam. And the guy's a genius, but
I know.
the fucking Hormozy's partnered up with him. That's crazy. It's gonna be crazy. I haven't been
Yeah.
following that, but that's gonna be nuts. But
Dude,
yeah,
it's an
it's
awesome.
all personal habits, man.
Yeah. And I think it's like that's really step one that most people have to step into. And even like me, like I need to realign that all the time, right? Like I did dry January. I got back into New York and I'm just like trying to get my diet and my workouts and my sleep's
Yeah,
the best it's been in like years. And like
I really.
it's exactly what you said. Part of it was just eliminating a lot of the bad habits. And hey, here's the thing. I'm in New York. I still party. I have fun, but it wasn't like the benders I was doing when I first got here, which is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
back to back 4 a.m. nights every single weekend, which dude, to be honest, it affected my performance in business. So once I
There's
started
no way
getting
it
rid of
can't.
that,
There's
yeah,
literally no
it's no
way
way
it
you
can't.
can. And I was dumb. I was naive. I was like, nah, I'm good. And then
Yeah,
you just like, nah, bro, the numbers don't lie. Like you will
yeah.
inevitably take a tank from that. You know what
I
I
remember
mean?
Sam saying in one of his videos, he's like, the smartest business decision I ever made was quitting alcohol. And
Yeah.
first time I heard that, I'm like, okay, good for you, Sam. I'm not doing that because I've always loved partying and drinking and stuff. And I haven't drank since like last November now. But
Good for you, bro.
yeah, it's been a minute, especially being in all these like countries where it's like they're party countries like Colombia. Um, oh, one of my clients has said she was closing at 20%. Now she's at 59%. Let's go. Um,
Boom.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
what's a cool little client when we're talking about that?
yeah,
So one of my one-on-one clients, Oliver, he had a record-breaking month like last month. He's a business owner. He was averaging like 15, 20K months and he generated 50K last month, right? And then he gets to me in a coaching call yesterday. He's like, dude, I a week into February, I'm at 25K cash collected. So he's
that's
on pace to actually break another
100K month.
record-breaking month. And then
Yeah.
here's the best part. He sends me a photo on WhatsApp of him getting a Rolex. Like it was
Nice, dude.
unreal. I was like, dude, this is awesome. So it's like, I think that's why I don't know if this is for you the case, but I think that's what I love about sales coaching is there's a different level of fulfillment that I get coaching people as opposed to just closing deals. And hey, I still close deals.
100%.
I still love closing deals, but it's
Yeah.
just a different game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If I could, I would just coach all day, but it's the same thing. I don't want to be one of those like coaches who's like only sells sales coaching and who
Yeah.
only coaches and doesn't close anymore. So
Right. Who's not sharpening
uh,
their sword?
gotta sharpen the sword, bro. You never know when zombies could appear or the Russians could invade or Trudeau tries to vaccinate me, which is not going to happen. So I got a sword now, Trudeau, bring it.
You got it.
But
Exactly.
yeah, it's just not happening. But what were we talking about? Fuck.
Sales coaching and like closing.
Yeah, no, even before that, dude. Just on the personal habit side, there was something I wanted to say, and like I realized when I was working for Cole, this is when I first realized it because I had my best month in January, and when I was thinking back, I thought it was like my skill level was so good now. I was like, I finally made it. Like I'm like a 30 sales per month guy. I'm like, I'm the shit. Yeah. But it was like a year later when I was like, what really happened that month? It was January. Every weekend it snowed. We had a huge blizzard. So I couldn't go out and party with my friends, which I did every weekend and get drunk. So that was a big one. I was going to the gym every day. I was like listening to sales calls like religiously. It wasn't like I would take, usually like if you start having a bad week, then you'll start listening to them. You're like, oh fuck, something's up.
Yeah.
But all my habits are just dialed in. And like I realized when you drink, it's like if you drink on a Friday, like you're not really like for me at least, I wasn't really back to normal until like Wednesday, the next
Yeah.
week. And
It's
then
like a
it's like
three
the
to five
pattern repeats
recoup.
itself. Yeah. And I'm like, I was already in my 30s. So like if you're like maybe early 20s, mid 20s, like you could maybe pull it off easier. I'm like, I
Well,
have to
dude,
fucking like start prioritizing this shit.
exactly, which is like that's a phase that I'm coming into right now as I get older. I think the biggest thing that you said is it's like you're gonna bleed into at least midweek of the next week if you're partying the weekend. Like it's just gonna be a
100%.
matter of the fact, right? Like what's crazy is like you will probably be operating maybe 50 to 60% of your potential in that first half of the week. And then, like you said,
Yeah.
you get to Thursday, you feel good. Friday, you feel good, but then you restart the weekend warrior cycle. And then you're
Yeah.
only really going to have 50% of your week at your full potential, if at that.
Yeah, bro. It must have just drove my like sales managers like fucking crazy. It's like, how come you it's like by Thursday and Friday you start all these deals start closing. But it's like Monday you're like is this like a different version? It's like a different person. I was like, hey,
Was there like an aha moment for you, or what was like, what
bro, that
specifically
was like
happened,
a
if you don't mind
full
me
year
asking?
later. Well, dude, I just really started dialing in my habits. Um, I I started really focusing on energy. Like, well, I started following this guy named Wes Watson on Instagram. He's another interesting character. And I was reading his book, and he wrote something in his book is like, um, basically he said anything that you regret, it's like he's like all the cultures throughout history have always considered your conscious as like the authentic voice of God. It's like the only infallible part of you. Your
Right.
ego, your mind's all infallible. But if you have something where if you feel regret, it's like that's not an accident. That's like not by choice. It's like you shouldn't feel. It's just like it's like your conscious God or the universe, whatever, is like calling you to like remove that thing from your life. And
Mm.
I read that and I was like, what's my biggest source of regret? Funny enough, I went out drinking like the next day, crashed a scooter, fucked up both of my wrists, and the next day I was at the gym trying to do bench press. I was like,
Damn.
fuck. I was like, oh, it's got to go. It's the alcohol. And I just started removing like these big things out of my life that were causing me all this like pain and regret. Alcohol was honestly the biggest one. I just started waking up earlier and I just started feeling so good. I started getting so much more energy and um yeah, that's when I kind of like started thinking back to like, well, how come I did so good this 1 month? And I really just looked at what was I doing outside of work. And I was like, you know,
There you go.
if you want to have like high performance in sales, you need like a high performance lifestyle. It's not just like you can't just like separate your work from like the rest of your life. So I was like, what if you just optimize your entire life to support you in business or in sales? I started thinking of like how much more money I would have made. Because even when I ran my business, we would have like a really good month or a really good week. You know, it was like make like 20K from like one email. It was like all these people signed up for a program. We're like, let's go party, you know? And then
Yeah, let's go celebrate. Yeah.
I would get into like I would be in like a good flow. I'd be like making content, I'd be doing sales calls, I'd be doing all this stuff. And then we'd go party. And then I would take like a week off. And it drove my business partner nuts. So like my old business partner Ryan would like, bro, like what the fuck? Like, why can't you be more consistent? And I was like, I don't know.
Mm.
Um, and so yeah, I just really realized last year that so much of your success in sales is like what you're not like what you're doing off the call.
Yeah. It's similar like athletes, right? It's not what they're doing during the game, it's what they're doing during practice
Yeah.
and out of the game. Are
Yeah,
you a
there's a reason why
partier
Kobe
like
is like
Dennis Rodman?
in the gym the next day after winning the fucking play, like
Yeah,
the championship. He's like he's right back to it. You know, you're either preparing
exactly.
or you're performing. That's what I think.
Hell yeah. Well, hey dude, I just want to acknowledge you. That's like an awesome fucking leap. You know, I would I'll talk for myself, but that's not an easy decision or transition for a lot of people. And you're obviously reaping the health benefits, the performance benefits from that. So kudos to you, my man. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, man. It's funny. I look at like old videos and like pictures of myself. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, who the fuck is this person? Like, I like don't even recognize myself. Like I was all like fat and like even like over a year ago, like this time last year, I was looking at the pictures like what the fuck? Like
Holy shit. You got to
yeah,
give
it's
the Twitter
crazy.
feed the before and after, bro.
Yeah, dude, I posted it. I went from like 212 down to like 175. Like
Wow. That's
I'm like,
big.
God, dude. Yeah. I'm trying to bulk
Yeah,
back
that's
up now and
awesome.
it's,
Yeah.
it's it's just as hard bulking back up as it is cutting, but anyway.
Yeah.
But if I lived in New York, I would probably feel the urge to go out and party a lot more.
Dude, it's a lot of
I go out.
environment.
I just don't drink when I go out. But no,
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think environment has a lot to play into it. And I know we're wrapping up on time here, but I'll kind of leave with this thought here is the most important thing I ever learned in any of these like coaching programs or mentors was like getting myself in the right environment. And I relearned that powerful lesson when I was in Hawaii
Mhm.
because in Hawaii, everything was shutting down like 10 p.m. right next to the beach, pretty much by myself, besides my sister being there because she lived, 10 minutes away. And I realized, like, dude, I don't even want to drink. Like, the urge did not even come. The urge to party didn't even come. Like, all I wanted to do was go to the beach, run, work on my biz. And then as soon as I get back to New York, it's like, a little bit of that urge to be social again. Like, I've kind of been locking in myself because it's like the winter arc right now. It's cold as hell.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, wow, that's why environment is so powerful. You engineer your environment to be in alignment with your goals, and it's game over. You
Yeah.
allow your environment to just be, the cause over your life, and good luck.
Yeah, man. I mean, you can always like put a well, if you ever looked at that triangle that Eli always talks about, the what is it? I used to know
The
the name of
triad?
it. Not the triad. No, that's like a Tony Robbins thing. But this is like the one where there's environment at the bottom and then
Mhm.
behaviors, like habits, I think
And then identity and like
beliefs.
whatever at the top.
Yeah, beliefs, identity, and then like mission or purpose is at the very top. And so it's like you can put a good person in a bad environment and they'll make the environment good. But you can also just change somebody's identity and it'll change the entire thing too. So like when I first started learning sales, I didn't know about any of this identity stuff. I was just like, well, just tell me what to do, But I think there's probably some shortcuts. Like if I were to just work with somebody who already had the right beliefs, that would have just, you know, probably cut my learning curve down by years. You know, like a lot of
Right.
people, I like even myself back then, like you know, I just didn't know anybody really that made money in sales. I didn't know any when I got into freelance copywriting. I didn't know anybody who did freelancing. I just
Yeah.
to go back to the whole network thing. This is like I kind of just figured it out myself and read some books. And I was like, oh, I guess I'll just try shit. But now like people have such like a head start.
Exactly. Because it's like, you know, we're a little bit older compared to like the newer generation of this new money stuff online, right? So we've kind of seen the internet start to really expand and grow and actually be a legitimate way for people to make a living in a business.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, but when I first started, I was like, the idea of making money online was such a fantasy and just felt like a scam to me and
dude,
most
totally.
people.
No, so for real, I
You
remember like I
know
was
what
on
I
like the
mean?
RSD forums, like looking through the because the whole reason I wanted to start a business was so that I could like make enough money to travel and like just like go chase girls around the world. Like that was like that was my goal. So I'm like, how are people making money on like
That's
I remember
hilarious.
coming across like affiliate marketing. I was like affiliate marketing, like learning all these stupid marketing words. I had no idea what any of this stuff was. I was like what is this shit? Man, yeah, yeah, crazy world, man.
Exactly, man. And the beautiful part is like once you unlock the key to like step into this world, it's like game over. You like literally start seeing the matrix and how to make money.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing too is like when I was on Cole's team, I've seen so many companies come and they're doing like, I don't know, let's say like 100K per month, which is like for a lot, by a lot of people's standards, that's like really good. But within like 90 days, they would be up to like 400K per month. Or you see somebody with like an agency and they get a few ads going and they get an appointment setter and they go from like 20K to like 100K per month, like immediately. You're like, it's really not that, like it's when you're first getting started, everything's such a big mystery. You're like, well, what are they doing? But it's really not that fucking complicated
Right.
to grow a business.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Pretty simple.
Yeah. Not to say it's easy, but I mean, compared to going back and working like a 9 to 5, like, or you going to back work at, I don't know. I guess you always had a kind of sales job. Yeah, not me.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's the idea of going back is tough because all the work, all the time, all the money you invested in to get to this path, I would never want to waste it,
Yeah.
you
You know
know?
what? I just, one little last note, because you were talking about beliefs and investing in yourself. So if you never invested 10K in yourself, how are you going to ask someone for 10K? I remember when I first, my first real high ticket thing, because for a while, like when I got started, I was like, I had no money. I made like 12 cents an hour for 2 months, so I would just like start off with books, and then I buy a course. I think I bought John Carlton's course on copywriting, and then I would just try stuff and make a bit of money, hire like I don't know, buy an expensive course like for $500, which was like expensive at the time. And eventually I got to the point where we were able to join this mastermind for 24K. And we had an agency at the time. So we had an agency and a coaching business. In our agency, I think we were charging like a 5K setup fee. And as soon as I paid 24K, we're like, well, why don't we just like double our price? So I'm gonna, like, next call, I'm gonna pitch for 7,500 setup fee. And the guy's like, all right. I was like, oh, that damn, like I could have like we could have been closing them for 7,500 this whole time. I'm like, well, the next call I'm gonna pitch for 15K. And the next guy was like, all right. I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? It like actually blew my mind.
Well, it's kind of like the rule where you just like keep increasing your price till people
So you
like
get
tell you
resistance.
no,
Yeah.
till you get resistance. And then if you find the sweet spot where enough people tell you yes and then enough people tell you no, all right, you found kind of that product market fit and pricing.
Yeah. It's crazy just to think like how much more money like we could have made though. It's just like, damn, I could have just been charging me this whole time. Anyway,
Right.
good times, dude.
Dude,
Um,
this was a blast. I'm glad we finally got to connect. It's funny, this is literally the first time we've ever had a conversation like outside of the DM.
yeah,
So I'm
bro.
glad we got to connect.
Well, before we go, we have to tell us about the toilet clothes. Like, where did this come from? I think I've done this by accident because I've been on calls before where the people are like, I'm like, hey, I gotta use the washroom. Like, I actually had to piss. I'll be like right back when they're like trying to sort out
Yeah.
their credit card details. And I was like, I'll be back. And then they just close. Like, what? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah,
Because
where
that was
did
the
it
first time
come
I heard
from?
about you.
So yeah, that video kind of went viral. It's kind of funny. So here's the caveat, guys. It's like the toilet close is not an end all be all tactic or strategy. All right. And you got to be mindful of like what offer you're on. No, it is not going to work in an enterprise deal at Salesforce. Like, let me just tell you that. All
He
right.
closed like $1 million deal.
So
Oh, I gotta use his toilet clothes.
how it got created was I literally, like you, had to take I had to take a fat shit one sales call and I was like holding it in for 20 minutes. Like I'm just gonna be perfectly honest. Like I had to take a fat shit. And I was like, dude, I will literally like shit my pants if I don't leave. So the guy was like, hey, I need to think about this. It's like, hey, I'll let you think about it. We've been on for an hour and 15 minutes now. Take 5 minutes. I'm gonna put myself on mute, turn off my video, and when we get back in 5 minutes, whether you decide to move forward or not, it's perfectly okay. We'll know then. So I unknowingly was performing the toilet close for the first time. I get back from the shitter. I'm like, dude, is this guy gonna close or what? I get back and he's like, all right, I'm in. And I'm like, holy shit, it worked.
Holy
So then
shit.
I started reverse engineer. I was like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Why does this work for some people? Is it a tactic that I can actually coach on? And what I found is the number one way that I'll ever use it is if someone is truly just like needs to sit with their emotions.
Yeah.
right? It's usually oftentimes an emotional processing thing.
Mm,
So it works better in B2C than obviously B2B, but I've used it in B2B too. I've used it with legitimate like 6-figure or 7-figure business owners. I just say it matter of fact. Like I don't need to be weird about it, right? In fact, there's times where I've used it and it hasn't worked. So it's not an end all be all, like I said. But what it does is it gives them the space. You lean out so that they
mm,
can lean in.
yeah.
That's it.
Makes sense, bro. The old toilet clothes.
Good old toilet
It's
clothes.
it's interesting too because if most salespeople would hear that, oh, I need to think about it, and they'd be like, okay, well, like let's set up another call. But you're like, okay, no problem. I'll give you 5 minutes to think about it.
Yeah,
It's
go
another
think
important
about it,
piece. Yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
people will
fuck.
say different things like, oh, let me just sit with this, or let me pray on it, let me meditate on it. I'll just let me think about objections. And I say, hey, not a problem. Here's a beautiful thing. I'm gonna let you do that right now. I'm gonna get some water, come back, give you your space, respect that, and I'll be back. And whether or not you decide to move forward, totally cool with me. I just want to give
Yeah.
you space right now. Boom.
See, my tactic is just go, yeah. I just stare at them intensely, and I pull out the sword, and I just,
You do 10 slashes to the left, 10 slashes to the right, and then just look
yeah.
at them.
I just pull out a dummy that has a shirt on that says, "I need to think about it," and you start slashing him to death.
Slashing their objections.
And then I say, "Is this your IP?" And then I pull out their IP on a piece of paper, and then after that, they're just sold every time. It's just, and if that
Oh.
doesn't work, I go, "Is this your family?" I'm like, "I have them in a van." I'm just kidding. No, those are the
That's
tactics we
funny.
can't talk about on here. Yeah,
Yeah, the secret tactics.
yeah,
Well, hey, Ben,
they don't teach
thank you,
that.
brother, dude. It was a pleasure, honestly, connecting you. We definitely got to jam some more
Yeah, bro.
offline and in the future. And thank you guys for everyone who's tuned in. Desire Russ to see you guys are still tuned in. Anyone who's watching the replay, I might be putting this on my YouTube if that's fine, Ben.
Yeah, I'll throw
Uh,
it on YouTube too. I'll send you
oh
the
yeah,
link.
cool, awesome stuff.
Sweet, man. I'll next time let's do it in person. I'll come to New York City one of these days.
Yeah, dude, we'll get the podcast set up. All
Hell yeah.
here.
I'll bring our swords. I'll sword fight. No homo. All right.
No homo. Later, crew. Later, Twitter.